All right, welcome back for episode 2 of Mailbag. It already feels like a long season, to be honest. But it's great to be here. And funnily enough, as often happens, we got sent a lot more inquiries and questions for the Mailbag after a loss like the one that we had. Joining me today is Ryan. Ryan, how you going?
Very good, Joel. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's been a very reflective week. Reading through all these questions and thoughts from everyone is kind of cathartic. And yeah, not sure how I feel about the upcoming game, but it's only round 2. There's only round 3.
I mean, describing some of this mailbag as emotional is probably an understatement. It's been it's been really beautiful. It's been very a lot of soul searching, I think, for a lot of us Bombers fans this week. So pretty excited to get into them.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just going to kick off by saying that there was a lot of commentary that came through this week, which we kind of addressed in the last mailbag. So a lot of questions on McGrath, a lot of questions on a few other things. So we kind of spoke about Harley Reid. There was a lot of questions around what we should do with our picks and should we go for Reid. We spoke about that a lot in the last one. So I will divert you back to that one, but thank you for sending them all through. A lot of the commentary this week in the media has really been centered around the fact that Essendon is rebuilding. You know, that word has popped up completely in the last week of media conference. And, it kind of, it's an interesting thing to be thinking about. In the few years gone by with pods, I feel like I've been a pretty avid supporter of us rebuilding and that it is going to take time and that we do have to be patient. But it's kind of painful to watch it actually happen as well, Ryan.
Yeah, Joel. I mean, it's one of those things. It's funny that, I think we're all coming to terms slowly but surely that we are in a rebuild, even though the club is very, very reluctant to use the word rebuild. I am slowly maturing this week because I guess I kind of started this year thinking I wasn't quite sure where the club was at. I knew we were going to be young. I just didn't, I suppose, see these sort of performances this early on in the season. So trying to come around to the idea, but as some of the mailbag that we do have coming up point out, I personally think I'm in the camp of, well, if we're going to do a rebuild, go the whole hog and don't half-ass it because certainly if we are doing a rebuild, better to start now than later because it's every minute we delay, I think it's just going to continue the pain, and suddenly it's 30 years and we're sitting here talking about 30 years since a finals win.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, we are. You're correct in saying a few of the questions kind of address this topic, so we'll jump into it. This one's really relevant for me because this happens to me every year, so I'll kick it off with the question from Loman Jack. How do we sort out what is seasonal depression versus what is just supporting Essendon Football Club?
It's very hard to decipher which is which because personally as a really pale guy, winter's a great season for me. We're just getting through the harshest time of the year for me, which is just it's an excess of sunscreen. So no, look, it's really easy. As soon as Essendon gets on the field and you start finding yourself becoming sort of emotionally unstable, that's really Essendon. We can't blame it on the seasons. I definitely think it's becoming easier to figure out. I really thought I was going into this year being really calm and measured, and it took about 5 minutes into the game against Adelaide, and my nuffy cap kind of came on, and it was all over for me.
Yeah, exactly right. It seems to coincide very, very well, these two things, but I was at the game on Saturday and it was kind of mid-20s, the sun was out, there wasn't a cloud in the sky, and I still felt terribly depressed. So I actually don't think it was a seasonal depression at that stage. I think it very much just is the Essendon Football Club a lot of the time.
God, it looked good there at the MCG on Saturday. It was absolutely picture perfect.
It was.
I was with my father on the day, and he's a really measured guy normally. Normally, I start by prefacing that, but he got loud. Yeah, he got loud. He got, as a 68-year-old man, he got loud, and I kind of started worrying about his heart.
Very fair. As a 34-year-old, I was worried about my heart as well. Yeah, so he must be a trooper. Why don't you, thanks for the question, Low Man Jack. Why don't you kick us off with the next one, Ryan?
Absolutely. So we've got James Hartford, 23 here. Should we try Durham off the halfback? can take a mark, break lines, always competes. What are your thoughts, Joel?
Yeah, I think for this one, and there's going to be a thread in a few of the things that we're responding to, but I think it's too early still in the season to throw the magnets around this much. You know, I think Durham's such an asset for us in the middle, and that's where he's going to grow for us in the long-term future. So I don't think putting him to halfback is doing anything for his development or necessarily anything for the team's long-term growth. I also think from a disposal perspective, that's probably the thing we're lacking the most. And, you know, we don't look to Duz as being one of the most elite kicks in the team. So whilst I'm sure he would compete and aim to break lines, if you've mentioned here, James, I think it's too early in the season to be throwing complete manoeuvres like that. I would much prefer, bringing new players in or trying other options and getting people who are elite kicks off that halfback flank.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because as a club, we always seem to be recruiting halfback flankers, and yet we don't seem to be able to get the halfback flank to work like we want it to. It feels like the last time we really felt quite confident with our halfback line, and I'm happy to be wrong here, but it felt like it was McKenna Sard. That felt like the only time where we felt like we really had threats coming off the halfback line. I feel like ever since then we've just been sort of trying to piece it together. I mean, obviously there was a guy called Massimo D'Ambrosio that could have fit really well on the halfback line, but I do agree with you. I think probably if we were maybe trying to contend or we were competing for finals, maybe moving him around to try and tidy up maybe a little flaw in the game or in the team lineup makes sense. But I think you're right. I think if we are in a rebuild and we are looking to the future, I think making sure we mature him as at least as a big-bodied mid, perfect. I think that's where he's got to stick it out. And if this year is to be what we think it's going to be, best to just get the games in the midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, James. The next one's from Instagram. Why do I continue to pay for a membership every year? I'm sad.
Well, this year, it's actually the membership was. I'm surprised it hasn't made more waves because the membership price did go up by quite a bit this year. So I even did make a little snide comment in the blog I made this week about the fact that Essendon members are paying more than ever before to watch absolute garbage, and it's I don't know why you're buying it. I do think maybe you're buying it and that's making you sad because it doesn't help when the every month when they're bringing that direct debit, it tends to coincide with a loss. So maybe just reevaluate that one next year. Yeah,
I look, this one's close to my heart as well, Mim. I've said on this pod that I renounced my membership in. I think it was after the St Kilda loss or the Gold Coast loss last year, and wrote to the club and said, "Do not auto renew me. I've been on auto renew for a very, very long time. I don't want it to happen." And I had someone from the club call me and sort of test me early this year, and they said, "Oh, we know that you didn't auto renew. Just wanted to see how you're feeling about it now." And I said, "I can give you the full version if you want to hear it." And they went, "Yeah, go on, try me." And so I unloaded on this poor guy for about 15 minutes with everything that I felt wrong. And at the end of it, he was like, "Yeah, no, fair point. Maybe see you next year."
Hey, I love the fact he didn't fight you. I like that.
Yeah, no, he knew it wasn't one of those turnarounds. And so, yeah, for me, I want to... I will renew my membership when I feel like the club is doing the right thing for success, as opposed to for membership numbers and for the sale of merchandise. And maybe that's what we're seeing this year. Maybe this is the first iteration of that. And so it could be that I'm back on board as of next year, but I understand your pain, Mim.
I tell you what, I wouldn't be shocked if the reason why we haven't heard the word rebuild is simply because they don't want those membership numbers to stagnate, because there's nothing that stagnates membership numbers like the good old rebuild. I've got one from Jason Good here. It's a very straight to the point one. When will Brad stop playing guys who can't kick?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Jason, he won't, because we don't have a lot of guys who can kick. And... I think that's the question that every Essendon supporter needs to ask themselves if results like what's happened so far continue, is what are we willing to put up with as supporters from a results perspective and over the next few years to ensure that we get people who can kick into the club and kind of build for the future, as we've just been discussing. So I would love it to be as simple as that, Jason, but I just don't think it is. We've blooded debutants every single week so far this year, so that's a really clear picture of where we're heading as well. And I just don't think we have the cattle to be able to not play that at this stage.
It's striking for a game called football how many guys in a team can't kick. It's just, there's been a lot of talk after the Adelaide game in regards to certain guys. We know guys like Sardis, and he's had a lot of issues, but it turns out he was playing with a broken finger. Was it a finger or hand? Yeah. For pretty much the whole game, which is, I don't know whose fault that is, but I don't know if it's really the excuse for why, there's so many guys in the team can turn it over so much. It is something that we just need to address, and it's amazing though, Joe Watson our last great kick?
Well, see, he wasn't when he first started. He worked on it a lot. He's kind of that Elijah Sardis mould in a way, bigger bodied, a bit slower, but great contested beast. Then worked lots on his hands and lots on his kick, and he actually did really improve throughout his career, and obviously led to a Brownlow that should still count. Sardis definitely needs a bigger ass if he's going to get into the Joe Watson conversation, because he was all ass, that man, and that's why he was such a powerful beast. Yeah. I think, you mentioned Sard and McKenna on the half-back line. I think the good thing about that was it was slingshot footy, and it did cost us the other way. So we still had those defensive issues, but we got it into our forward 50 so much quicker having those two there that, there was an opportunity to score, and there was an opportunity for our forwards to compete one-on-one when that was happening. And, there was defensive issues definitely at that stage, but at least we were in games more from a shootout perspective.
Big time.
So next question from Mitch Websdale. Do you think Cox will play for Essendon or play AFL ever again?
It's a bloody great question at the moment. So from what we understand, he's suffering from concussion symptoms. So prolonged concussion symptoms. Am I right in that one?
Yep.
I mean, even without them, last year was one of the hardest years to watch Nick Cox play, because it just felt like the club didn't know where to play him. And I think we played him down the forward line, down the back, occasionally on the wing, and it was a hard year for him as it was. And I mean, I was even thinking over the weekend, I was looking at the list, and I thought it's a bad list, but I still don't quite know where I want him to play. And then you add on top of that now these significant issues that he's having with concussion. It does. It definitely makes you think, well, look, footy's going to be the second most important thing in your life for a while. It's going to be the question, if he can get over these concussion symptoms, great. But then the question still remains, which I think has been there for a while now, is where is he best played, and whose spot is he taking at the moment?
It's with the AFL's focus on the safety of players and some of the stories we've had over the last 5 years or so with concussion, it kind of doesn't read well. It's 15 years ago, would he have already been playing? I'm not sure, but it doesn't really read well. And to have had it happen very early in pre-season, then to be listed still kind of as an unknown as to when he'll come back, and to not be training properly it is a real concern. I don't know concussions well enough to know what the marker is of him starting to be right again, but that's a long time out with something that can take people a week, to recover from.
Yeah, we just got to hope that he keeps himself in good shape, just as long as he keeps himself healthy and fit, and it doesn't really matter if he plays footy as long as he's doing all right, because obviously we've seen the ramifications of concussions in older players, and it can get very, very unpleasant very quickly.
Yep, absolutely.
I've got a question here from Sean PC. And this is an interesting one because of his brother and I think even his background. Any thoughts on throwing Ben Mackay forward?
I guess I think the same as the question before with Durham. I think it's too early in the season to make a move that drastic. Maybe in a quarter, in a game. Maybe if we're already losing and, we want to just see what's happening and we're 60 points down and see what happens for a quarter. I don't think it's a far-fetched idea, as you mentioned, given why he was drafted or playing that position in juniors, and given his performance so far in the forward line. So I don't think this is completely out of the question to see at some stage this year, but I think it's a later on in the season when we know the season's cooked and we want to trial other people in different positions as well, and then that allows us to maybe play some more people in the back line and that sort of thing. So I think we will see it at some stage this year, maybe earlier in the year in games, in moments that, either we need a goal out of nowhere and let's just throw something and see if it happens, or when we're down by enough to just try and move some things around and see what happens.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think he was a relatively late in his junior career move to the backline. I think he had originally been a forward, which makes sense with his body frame and everything. But I guess my biggest concern would be, is moving him to the forward line going to change the fact that he plays with zero passion or any intensity whatsoever? I think the biggest concern I have for him really just comes down to the fact that he looks genuinely disinterested being out there, and I don't know whether that's just a leftover from being a North Melbourne player, or whether it's just something a little bit deeper. But I don't know. I mean, I love the way that it was this week. I think Nate Caddy had a bad game, but I think it was Brad Scott came out and he said that when I subbed him, he looked like he wanted to punch me in the face. I mean, that brought, I nearly cried with joy thinking about a player being that disappointed to be subbed off in a game, and he plays for Essendon. I love that. I absolutely love the idea of a guy who's that upset at being subbed, that a coach considers that, geez, this guy might actually punch me. I love that, and I think we need more of it, and I don't know if Ben Mackay is the type of guy that has that in him.
It's interesting having him at fullback and then having Peter Wright, let's say, if at full forward when Peter's playing. And I think he will be coming back into the team, I imagine, once he's fit. They're both timid in their own way, as you sort of mentioned. And Mackay, that's the coaching challenge, is how do you bring that out of him? Brad Scott has known him from the past. He clearly knows something about him or sees something in him that has encouraged him to spend as much money as he has and act quickly and aggressively to get him. But bringing that out is really important. And I think we need confidence across the group for Mackay to be confident. It's the same as Peter Wright, the confidence across the group and the buzziness of the forward line and what's happening around them really lifts those sorts of players. We have not as many, as you mentioned, Caddy might be one that's coming, that are like, no matter how we're going, I am going to lift and I am going to be hard. I think we need more people who are willing to put the team on their shoulders, but we've got a lot that are kind of waiting for others to do it until that confidence gets injected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know really where it's going to come from outside of that, but God, I hope it happens soon. I hope it happens soon.
Me too. Now, I've got a bit of a take here that we can discuss, kind of to what we were just speaking about from Aidan Aldridge. He said, Reid needs to just play footy, but he's not at all ready, or he's not AFL ready. Put him in the twos and develop Reid and Hayes together. This is the first part of his take.
Yep.
The second part of his take is Wright needs to play when he's fit again because Caddy can't develop being monstered each week by the best defender. And I think that's a really great point in bringing Wright in purely for the fact, if we're in a rebuild, that Wright's in there, obviously hopefully to kick some goals and give him some confidence, but so that Caddy can develop around him, maybe not taking the best defender. What do you think on both those points?
So I got to admit, I mean, I'm definitely someone who would be described as someone who doesn't like Peter Wright's output over the last couple of years, and I saw him. I didn't really see him coming back into the team this year, but I think that there is a real merit to that point, that it just does give a little bit of cushioning to a guy like Caddy. Even if you just play Peter Wright as a stay-at-home, like a traditional old-fashioned, you sit in the goal square. You stay there and you let Caddy obviously just play around that centre half forward. With Stringer out as well, I think that definitely helps out. I think we maybe as a fan base have we probably haven't forgotten Stringer's not there, but I think we've forgotten that a lot of oppositions would put a lot of time into him. There would be a lot of double teaming, and he would get a really good defender on him. Definitely, I mean, on the weekend, Kako and Caddy definitely looked like they were dealing with better than usual defenders for guys of their age. and their experience. I mean, what is it, game 2 and game 9 or whatever for Caddy. I do see value in that, and I wouldn't be shocked if once he's ready to rock and roll, I think you could see Peter Wright back in that forward line. I don't know what that necessarily does for the resting Draper in the forward line. I don't know quite how that works. I mean, funnily enough, he had a really great weekend, and he should be considered dangerous to opposition teams. But they just clearly don't respect him enough, considering the way he kicks goals. So I really I don't mind that at all. I don't mind that at all. And the point about a guy like Reid, we always try to be very careful and measured with Reid because we know his background with his injuries and how hard he's worked. He just looked and he is young, but he looked so young on the weekend. He got bullied out of every contest. He was always lagging behind. He always felt slow and he just looked so lean. I always saw him. I thought, he'll put on the muscle. It just seems to be taking a little longer than I think a lot of us expected. I don't mind the idea of taking him back. I remember back in the day, I can't remember, it might have been John Worsfold who did it with Kyle Langford, sending him back to the twos for pretty much half a season to learn midfield craft. Now, granted, he didn't end up playing in the midfield, but I do think it made him probably a better player.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm not against it. I'm very confident the club won't do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I really like the right forward line idea just for that sake. And you're right, it throws a bit of a spanner in the works with Draper. But having Reid and Hayes play together would be awesome. There's a good chance it's going to be in the seniors through the back half of this year anyway. Side note, so Draper's kicked 4 goals so far this season. 1 in round 1, 3 last week. What's for some of the flack that he does cop for his kicking and a few other things, if he continues on this trajectory, what's a season where we're goals-wise, where we're like, you know what, that worked, that was effective. How many goals does he have to kick for us to turn around and be like, this was a good move and he's actually had a impactful season as that sort of ruck forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. Because he is such a Jekyll and Hyde type of player, it is really hard to sort of confidently put a number on it because he's just, I was on the weekend, you heard the groans every time he made a snap and he lined up for that snap with those long arms out. It was hard to watch, but you can't argue the result. He kicked 3 straight, and he kicked one from about 45 out, and it looked really good. He was able to get the distance, which he couldn't do straight out for a long time. I reckon, look, if he was probably kicking maybe... So what do we got? So 24 rounds. If he kicked maybe 30, I guess... I mean, it would, again, that's pretty consistent. That's a goal that's like 1.5 goals a game. That's a pretty good return. But I mean, if he kicked 2 goals a game and he had imagine if he had a 40 goal season. I mean, that's hot.
Yeah,
I mean, that
would be fantastic. Yeah.
Particularly considering that I know that he's, from all reports, he doesn't want to leave the club, but geez, that puts his value up. If he's a 40 goal a season resting ruckman in the forward line, that is... Yeah. He is looking at a very, very, very nice pay packet. But what about you? If you sit between the 30 and 40?
I think if it's over 25, I'm happy. I think 30 would be a massive tick, and then obviously if it's 40, he's well and above played on above everyone's expectations. But I think if he kicks above 25 goals, we can say that this has been a success in terms of having him spend more time down there.
Yeah, 100%. I've got one here from We're the Archers. Oh, God, that took me a while to read. It's a quick one. Is this week redemption week?
I'm going to say yes.
Should I buy a ticket?
Don't buy a ticket, by the way. No, it's not that. If
anyone's got a free one, give me one.
Yeah. No, so look, I think we will see a response. We have been in this redemption cycle. That's where this quote obviously comes from. Obviously, We Are the Archers is a long-time listener. They've experienced it for a while. But we don't have to win to be redeemed. We have to put in a better effort. And I'll probably be a bit darker than I am right now if it happens 2 weeks in a row. Port Adelaide have a fantastic record against us, obviously. It's been a long time since we've beat them at Marvel or anywhere. But I think we will see redemption. I think we will see that competitiveness that we saw from the first week. We will still be sloppy. There's a chance a good chance we're not going to win this game, but I expect the effort and intensity and contested nature of our team play to lift.
Yeah, it would be real. I mean, you'd be wanting to wear your suit to Monday's pod because that would be funeral season if we went down in the same fashion that we went down to the Crows. Yeah. I mean, look, it's funny. It is really funny, and this the phrase "doom and gloom" leads into my next point from another mailbag entry, but. The Hawthorn loss, in retrospect, isn't actually that bad. It was a really bad first quarter that pretty much set the tone for the remainder of the game. We only went down by 26 to a team that's looking really good, that we all expect to probably be there at the pointy end of the season. I think it was the fact that a lot of us went into the Adelaide game expecting to see a contest. I think a lot of us went in going, hey, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So to go down in that manner, again, it's weird losing by 60 points and scoring 100. It's really weird. But Port Adelaide is really dangerous because I think we've been their bunnies for so long, and I do have a former boss who always told me about it too, so who was a big Port man. But look, we will see a response, but the question for me is how long does it last? Does it last a quarter, a half? I mean, I felt like we came out from halftime at the MCG and went bang, bang, and it felt like, okay, we might be on here. Maybe they got a rocket up them, and then bang, back to normal, and it just continued on as badly as it was.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think we see that a lot with Essendon. Start the first quarter strongly, the other team goes up a gear, we fall away. Start the second half strongly, the other team goes up a gear, we fall away. So we need to be able to go up a gear again if needed. We can't just start with a flash and then disappear. 100%. All right, so we've got a couple of takes here, which we've sort of done the short sharps, and now we've got a few takes from a couple of people. So I'll kick this one off with a take from Aaron Barnes. All the talk since Saturday is about Essendon's on-field rebuild. But for me, I feel like we need a rebuild of supporters. I was at the game with me wife, and almost 3-year-old daughter, and the Essendon supporters booing the Essendon players at halftime was almost enough for me to leave then and there. We're better than that, Dons fans. Please don't go to the game if you're going to sink to the level of Blues fans.
That's a nice little side swipe for the Blues fans out there too. I like that.
Good stuff.
Aaron. I think that's probably a nice. It's something that I think we all need to hear at the moment. I mean, heaven forbid we want to get into the category of Carlton fans, but look, it's true. I think it's I think I said it post match on the weekend. I think the clubs tried to warn us that this was sort of where we were at, and that where we were going to be, but very delicately, because obviously they kept telling us all these, we're developing, we're progressing, and we were looking good in the last two seasons. So I don't think we should be as shocked as I think we are. But no, I think that's a very good sentiment. I think we all need to just take a breath and go from there.
I agree, Aaron. I get frustrated at the game, but I do try and hold myself back from loudly abusing players, and particularly at breaks. I would never spray the team as they were walking off. Whereas the 23rd man is what we are, and we kind of have to help them feel confident and good about what they're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a take here from Ethan Goading, and it really goes down a similar line. Curious to get your take on the current mood among the fan base. There's been a pretty heavy sense of doom and gloom, especially on the Discord. They can get quite dark on the Discord, where it feels like people have already written off the season entirely. Don't get me wrong, we've had a poor start structurally and defensively, and some senior players and the coaching staff definitely need to be held accountable. But at the same time, we're only 0-2, and it comes against two sides who will likely be in the mix come September. I'm also seeing some takes that North and West Coast have somehow passed us after a couple of rounds, but I feel like that is a bit of an overreaction. West Coast beat a hungover Brizzy, with no scoring output, and North got over a Melbourne side that looks mentally and culturally cooked. I get it, it's frustrating and easy to spiral, especially with the way we've looked behind the ball, but it still feels way too early to write off the year. Teams like Brisbane and Hawthorn turned around 0-3 and 0-5 starts last season. If we tidy up our defensive structure and get a few key players back from injury, there is no reason we can't steady the ship.
I think, Ethan, first things first, internet forums are always dark. Whether it's the Discord, whether it's Reddit, whether it's any internet, YouTube comments, darkness is the predominant emotion. So try not to read too much into the way that people feel on Discord, but it was felt at the game, as Aaron had mentioned in the earlier take. And I think it really depends on what you mean by steadying the ship and kind of what writing the year off means. Is steadying the ship being competitive and, posting 6 or 7 wins, but, being competitive throughout, or is in, a lot of supporters' eyes, steadying the ship, kind of scraping into the 8? Because I think if your expectations are that we could still play finals, that they probably have to be rewritten. If your expectation is that we want a team that's going to compete every week and that we want some energy from younger players and that we see a couple of highlights each game that get us excited about your future, then I think that's what we're looking for. So I think you're right in saying that it's too early to be as negative as a lot of people are right now. But I think a reset on expectations for a lot of people is probably really key to balancing that out.
Yeah, I totally agree, Joel. I think it's a reassessment. That's all it is. It's just acknowledging where we are and where we need to get to. I think as long as we can walk out of the year with probably a clearer sense of game style, a clearer sense of who is going to be in that next competing team, who of the list that we have actually can do it, and kind of just, I think that's steadying the ship for me. If we can walk out of this year going, I know what type of game they're trying to play, I know we have X amount of cattle that can do it, then it's all about just making sure we just shore up the draft picks or the trades or whatever we do post-season, and get into 2026 a little healthier. I do think, I would probably say though, I do think the year is over. I would probably say that I don't expect to see us moving outside of that bottom 4. It's just the nature of, I think it's just the nature of the year. I think when you kind of accept that we are rebuilding and we are moving into a sort of a new sort of version of what the Essendon football team looks like, it's easier to accept that you won't have to really scroll up the ladder too far to find us.
Yeah, that's right. That resetting of our expectations and clarity.
Healthy misery.
Actually, that's fine. We're used to that. Well, actually, we're not. It's always unhealthy, but we've got to try and get used to this for a little bit now too. All right, I'm going to wrap us up with the take from Bakes. Gents, first time, long time. Love you guys in the pod. We love you too, Bakes.
He's not talking about us.
Yeah, all of us, everyone that's involved. Does it ever get any better? You can blame Scott. You can blame the cattle. You can say that we've had a bunch of high draft picks that have been duds. All those things may be true. But those are the same things we've said about 3 coaches and 20 years worth of playing groups at this point. They can't all have been that bad, can they? There has to be some sort of issue at board and management level. My view is boys club type stuff that prevents us from putting the right people in the right spots. See Dodoro. That means we don't operate efficiently as a football club as compared to our competitors. That filters down through the coaches and the playing group, and the result is the shit that we have to view on the park year in, year out. Without major structural change at the highest level, I think we remain cooked for the foreseeable future. So in short, he said, I think I've answered my own question. It doesn't get any better unless we get rid of Barham and have some major turnover at board level. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for giving me something to look forward to each week that relates to this sack of shit club. Cheers.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a way to finish it. Love you, buddy. I think that process has probably already started. I think if you kind of see how much the board has changed over the last couple of years, I think it is in the process, particularly with sort of the conclusion of Dodoro's tenure and Sheedy's connection with the club at board level, I do think you are seeing that change at a higher point. I think Vozzo coming in after, and the thing was Campbell was a good CEO, but not necessarily a good football CEO. He got the club really financially sound, and he got us financially through a really tough time. But I just didn't think he had the chops to really know how to support a football department that really needed it. At the end of the day, we're a football club, and we need wins. Everything can be great financially, but if we're not winning, it's not good. So look, I think Barham and the crew, they're all fairly new, to be honest. But I do get his frustration. I do understand where he's coming from, because I do admit I feel like I've had these sort of little quiet musings to myself in the last couple of years. Just clean them out, clean the house. But look, I do think that process is underway, and I think, as painful as it is to hear, I think we've just started, and there's more to come. So it's still a long road ahead, but I do totally get where he's coming from.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's in process, and it's going to take a long time. It takes a long time to turn the Titanic, and I think when you have decades of mediocrity and decades of, as you've sort of said, a boys' club looking after themselves and their mates, unpacking that culture, unwinding the impact of that, throughout the organisation onto the playing field takes more than a couple of seasons. And I think that's why I have a lot of sympathy for Scott. And, I actually think the extension of his contract is a good thing. I know it kind of gets ragged on a lot. And I think that, it's a fucking hard job. And he's staying the line, and he's putting up with a lot of shit, and he's getting through it, and he's frustrated. Sometimes I think he dodges things in the media that he shouldn't dodge. But I do think that he's got an idea now, and he's working on it. And as you said, Rose is in, and they're working on it. And, they're resetting the team as we speak. I think we've cycled over 20 players in the last 2 years. So, it is in motion. It just takes a long, long time when you're coming from this far back, that deeply in your organisation.
Yeah, generational change tends to take a generation to fix, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that does us. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ryan.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Joel. Loved being here.
Thanks, everyone, for sending in the questions. Awesome to get them all. Sorry we couldn't get to everyone. I would say for future, if there's a topic we've already discussed, we'll probably pick the new topics if we can. So that, prime your questions towards that. But appreciate everyone sending stuff in. Hopefully this week gives us a little bit more to be excited for. Go Plains.